following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's doing well out there on a very rainy Friday, by the way, in Las Vegas, might I add. Thanks for being here, folks. The YouTube Super Chat going strong. Pushingthelimits.live is the website, the FMAM Dow KSHP. We are all over the World Wide Web, approaching 154,000 subscribers on YouTube. And, of course, the most interactive show around. We always take phone calls on this show from all over the world, not just all over the country. We appreciate you being here on what is another very busy news day. Of course, we know Mamdani meeting with Donald Trump today. That's certainly going to be an interesting meeting. It is not open to the media, so I don't know how it's going to go. We may never know the truth of what happens, but that certainly will be interesting. While all this is going on, the Epstein cover-up continues, with more revelations that seem to be coming out by the day, and MAGA Republicans continuing to curl themselves into the MAGA pretzel, defending this adjudicated abuser, liar, draft dodger, you name it. So we'll certainly be talking about that. So I'm looking forward to talking to this guy coming up at the bottom of the hour. Anybody who listens to the show knows I enjoy a good debate, right? I like a good debate. I would rather interview people and have discussions with people that I disagree with than I agree with. That's just the way I am. So coming up at the bottom of the hour, he's a pretty staunch Trump supporter. He has a huge following on social media, and he recently did a video about me. His name is Warren Smith. He's got a very large YouTube channel. He's got 500,000 subscribers on there, and he calls himself a critical thinker and to navigate stories that make up the world. That's how he describes himself, and he recently did a segment about me on his channel, criticizing me, calling me a liberal, and saying I don't know what I'm talking about, basically, when it comes to the 34 felony counts and Donald Trump. He criticized my appearance on the Tim Pool show. So he's agreed to come on the show, and we're going to have a duke it out debate. I'm sure it'll be respectful. He seems like a nice guy. And that'll be coming up at the bottom of the hour. So Warren Smith, you're not going to want to miss it. Good debate. Nicole Mitchell's going to be joining us in hour number 2. The former pastor, now turned life coach. So that's always fun catching up with her. So plenty to talk about today. A lot to get into today, but I got to start off by, unfortunately, some of you MAGA supporters might not like this, but I got to start the show today with some very bad news for Donald Trump. You see, ladies and gentlemen, some would argue this could be the worst 10-day period in Donald Trump's second term. I want you to listen to the CNN pollsters and how they describe the numbers that are not good. In fact, they use the word atrocious to describe Donald Trump's poll numbers. Now, if you listen to Donald Trump and you listen to his MAGA base of supporters, they'll make it sound like everything's hunky-dory and Trump's got great approval numbers. He doesn't. Have a listen to this.
That standing has been slipping over the last couple of weeks. How much? CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton is here on this special Friday. It's been a tough few days for the president in the polls.
Yeah, John Berman, I would say this is probably the worst 10-day period for the president in the polls his entire second term. The numbers are just atrocious. What are we talking about here in terms of net approval rating? Well, take a look. These are all November polls. The best one of the group puts him at 14 points underwater. That's the Marquette University Law School poll, tied for the worst he's ever had in that poll. Fox, 17 points underwater. Marist, 17 points underwater. The Reuters Ipsos poll, 22 points underwater. And then taking the cake, the AP North poll, 26 points underwater. When your best poll has you still 14 points underwater, you know it's truly bad, and it's as bad as 26 points underwater. We're talking about an average well underwater with the deep blue sea, swimming with the fishes.
And now this is all parties here. If you think this is bad, Harry.
If you think this is bad, what is driving these horrific numbers for Donald Trump? Well, why don't we take a look at independents, Trump's net approval rating with independents. Back in January, he was close to even. He was at -4 points. Not great, but not terrible. Look at this number, 43 points underwater with independents in the most recent average of these polls. When you are 43 points underwater with independents, you know you're doing terribly. You can't win with this. If this holds for next year's midterm election, wave adios amigos, goodbye, see you later to that House Republican majority and that Senate Republican majority very much in danger as well. When you take a look at the Pew Research validated voter survey going back to last year, he was basically even among independents with Kamala Harris. Now he is 43 points underwater. Whatever he is doing with independents, it ain't working. They despise him at this point.
That is just a colossal drop.
Oh, my God, it's a 40-point move.
Okay, that's among certain political groups here. How about what issues may be driving this?
Okay, yeah, so we say that independents are driving Trump's decline overall, but what is pushing independents and the rest of the electorate away from Donald Trump? Away from Donald Trump. John Berman, move out of this screen. Away from Donald Trump. Well, it has everything to do with inflation. It's the cost of living, baby. That is the name of the game. You go back to January, he was 3 points above water. This was the reason why that voters gave him a second term. You look at this, now 34 points underwater. My goodness gracious, that is a 37-point move in the wrong direction.
Yeah, so there you go. Those are the numbers. The only thing maybe I disagree with that is when they said he was underwater. I don't know. I thought that the 400-pound orange orangutan could float, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Those are not good numbers. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. And by the way, his numbers on Fox News polls and right-wing entities are not very good either. But the fact of the matter is that his numbers have been plummeting. And I would start with the Epstein stuff. Even many within his base are very upset with the lack of transparency releasing the Epstein files. Now, listen, we all know why. I believe there is some very damaging stuff in there. In fact, I know. His name is in the Epstein files over 1,000 times. There's a lot of stuff in there that he doesn't want to go public. Maybe some criminal. I don't know. But certainly a lot of disparaging stuff and embarrassing stuff that he doesn't want out. So he has, and his entire administration have been covering this up. This is an Epstein cover-up since day one. We had Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, on the other day, who also said that he believes Donald Trump probably knows what happened to his brother and may even have been responsible. I'm not going to get into the whole Bubba email. I didn't get into it with Mark Epstein, but let's just say there's a lot of embarrassing stuff in these files that Donald Trump does not want you to see. This is a monster cover-up from Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all the way down. So why are his poll numbers so bad? That's just one reason. Another reason, the economy. Donald Trump said on day one those prices would plummet. It's been the opposite. Inflation has been going up for the last 5 months. And when Donald Trump wants to brag to all of you on how cheap, Thanksgiving is going to be for you and your family, and he mentions Walmart a lot, right? This Walmart Thanksgiving dinner. Well, what they don't mention is last year it was 23 items, and now there's only 15 items in there. So they don't mention stuff like that. So obviously number two is the economy, right? He also promised he would end the war in Ukraine on day one. We all know that that's not happening. And even if Ukraine and Vladimir Zelensky sign off on this deal, it's a horrible deal for Ukraine because you're giving up land that Russia doesn't own, and you're rewarding an evil, murderous dictator in Vladimir Putin for invading our allies. There is no peace in the Middle East. Donald Trump still says there's peace in the Middle East. They broke the ceasefire deal within a couple days. Both sides did, Hamas and Israel. There is no peace in the Middle East. So what exactly has Donald Trump done? Well, perhaps one of the only things he's done that he promised he was going to do was to pardon a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists, some of whom, by the way, are back in jail. I just read a story the other day about one of those insurrectionists who Donald Trump called a patriot and a hostage who sodomized an underage girl. He's back in jail now. So much for making America safe again, right? So I think that's a big part of it as well. There's no accountability within the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth is a complete imbecile. Kash Patel, and I haven't spoken to one MAGA Republican in my orbit that is happy with the job that Pam Bondi is doing. I don't think anybody is happy with the job she's doing. Kash Patel is a buffoon who has no idea what he's doing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. should be nowhere near this position. Cosplay Kristi Noem, if she's not traveling the country on horseback, wearing her outfits and taking selfies in front of some chickens and in front of some frogs in Portland, these are not serious people. And there are evil people in Donald Trump's administration as well, like the Millers, like Stephen Miller. So I think there's a lot of different reasons why his poll numbers have tanked. And every single time you see Donald Trump talk about how wonderful the economy is, so many of his supporters are saying, wait, what? I lost my job. My wife lost her job. Our 401k has gone down the toilet. Our stocks are plummeting. I just went to the grocery store and just brought a week's worth of food, and it's 3 times more than it was a year ago. There are a lot of people out there that are very upset. And then there are a group of people that are afraid to admit that they made a mistake in voting for this guy. And then there are obviously his cultists, where he can sodomize a child on video right now and they would still support him. Those are the different types of Trump supporters. But I think a lot within his base are getting extremely frustrated. And like I said, I think it starts with the Epstein files. That's my personal opinion. So this is a new segment that we're doing here on the show, and I'm very proud of this segment. We're calling it the MAGA Mushroom Gobbler of the Day. We have a few today and some audio that we would like to play for you. Now listen, I don't think Benny Johnson is a very serious individual. I think Benny Johnson, like many others on the far right that are social influencers, as they call them, he's certainly not influencing me with anything. But there's a lot of people out there that are not very serious. There's a lot of people out there that don't mean what they say. They make money off of their right-wing propaganda. And Benny Johnson is a guy who wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7. But I want you to listen to this audio of the MAGA Mushroom Gobbler of the Day in honor of Benny Johnson, who claims that Donald Trump is often called the president of the world. Now, I've never called him that, but listen to this.
Donald Trump is often called the president of the world. Multiple world leaders have called him that. I don't want to call him that, but that's what world leaders have called him because the office itself is so unbelievably powerful, Piers. And you have military bases all over, and every second there's another world leader calling you for something. And I think there's a reality distortion field in D.C. that has been very pernicious in our politics in America for the last 50 years, for sure, since the Second World War, where American politicians feel like they have to be the world's police and they feel like they have to be the world's daddy. And that's not why we elected you, damn it. You know, we elected you to be daddy here, to care for your children, which are American. And I think that that's how a lot of administrations, Trump's and many others, have gotten sort of derailed and have soured with the American people because they do focus so much abroad, and it's like this lack of an ability to focus domestically here in a country that has a ton of problems, like a lot of real problems for real Americans. And they're the stakeholders in this nation. They're the ones who elect you. You should have allegiance to absolutely no one else other than this nation and its voters, and you should care for them like your own children. That's your job. That's why we pay you, and that it's actually your moral duty.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump mushroom gobbler of the day, Benny Johnson. I don't know, do you hear people in your orbit calling Donald Trump the president of the world? I don't really hear that very often. He says, we elected you to be daddy here to care for your children, which are Americans. So don't care for people if they're not naturally born Americans. That's basically what Casper the Friendly Ghost, Benny Johnson, is saying, which is absolutely racist in nature. Again, this is a guy who goes on social media every day, who wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7, who has zero credibility. This is the guy who spreads propaganda and gets paid a lot of money to do it. You can't take any of these people seriously. Benny Johnson is an absolute right-wing hack and a buffoon who lies every single day, just like the Trump administration does. Now, speaking of another right-wing buffoon who is a Trump gobbler, that would be 4-foot-tall Markwayne Mullin, who suffers from small man syndrome. If not Trump fellatio syndrome. Maybe it's a double entendre, maybe both. Because Markwayne Mullin doesn't have to go on his knees. He could just be standing up. Maybe Markwayne Mullin is Bubba. I don't know. But anyway, listen to this exchange he had yesterday, or this was earlier this morning, saying he thinks it's a win for both sides, for Russia and Ukraine, if basically Russia gives up no concessions and Ukraine gives up all the concessions. By the way, a country that was invaded by the evil, murderous dictator himself, Vladimir Putin. Have a listen to the Putin puppets. That is what is the Republican Party today.
Mr. Senator, this deal, my opinion, would be a win for Putin. You happy with that?
Well, I think it's a win for both. Zelensky's looking for a way out. The president's doing everything he can to negotiate a peace deal. If you knew, and Stu, I don't think I can share with you all the details of where we started from with Putin and the negotiations with Zelensky, but I will tell you just one little part how far we've come back to the center is one thing that Russia and Putin was pushing is they wanted all the land that a Russian soldier had stepped foot on, which would have been absolutely ridiculous. And so we're pushing back. We always knew we were going to lose part of Donbass. We understood that. Zelensky, I don't think, wanted that at all. In fact, I know he didn't want it. We had conversations about that. Kyiv was never going to be able to be put back into Ukraine, and a lot of times, if you talk to the people of Kyiv, or not Kyiv, but my mind just let me.
Crimea.
Crimea. If you talk to the people in Crimea, they kind of see themselves more as Russia, anyways. And so this gives security to Ukraine, which is what they're needing. It also it gives a little bit of assurance to Putin that they're not going to be able to join NATO, but it still gives NATO security if Russia impedes again into the sovereign territory of Ukraine. So, it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than killing people every day.
And it would stop the war, and that would be the way it should be.
Right.
I cannot believe it, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised hearing this from the Trump mushroom gobbler himself, Mark Wayne Mullen. What would stop? Just explain this to me for a moment. What would stop Vladimir Putin from once again invading Ukraine or any other country for that matter? Seriously. And Mark Wayne Mullen has the audacity to say that, Putin won't do it again. This gives Ukraine security. I mean, these people are not serious people, and they are pro-Vladimir Putin. They are pro-Russian propaganda. They are pro-Donald Trump, so they will lead the way. If Donald Trump called Putin an evil, murderous dictator today, Mark Wayne Mullen would probably say that. But they just follow the lead of Orange Turd, and they repeat all the talking points of Donald Trump and his administration, and it's despicable. And then comes Representative Hinson, who was another Trump mushroom gobbler, who apparently is emphasizing the fact of where the Republican Party was, and it appears as though they transitioned from the threat of Jewish space lasers to now Chinese baby monitors. Folks, I am not making this stuff up. Listen to Representative Hinson.
And then just from my perspective as a mom, I think about, watching baby monitor. That's a very intimate moment with you and your baby at home. And to think that the Chinese could be spying on your morning routine or what's going on with your family, it is certainly very, very concerning.
Why? Why are they spying on moms?
Yeah, it comes down to they just want to know what Americans are up to so that they can continue to undermine our way of life, our value system. It's all about the competitive nature, right? They understand us better than they, you talk about that surveillance state. It's alive and well in China. They want that here as well.
What? I mean, I don't even know what she's talking about. Chinese baby monitors. I guess that's the new topic of conversation. These people are not serious people, and unfortunately they're in powerful positions and they're lawmakers, and I don't understand how these people ever get into office. But then again, I don't really understand how people voted for Donald Trump again, so, I guess it goes both ways on that one. Perhaps the biggest Trump mushroom gobbler of them all is Vice President J.D. Vance, again, who once called Donald Trump the next American Adolf Hitler. So this is one of those statements that I hear from the right on a regular basis. They tried to kill Donald Trump. They killed Charlie Kirk. And this drives me absolutely effing crazy because they didn't try to kill Charlie Kirk. From what we understand, one deranged person murdered Charlie Kirk. They didn't try to kill Donald Trump. Two individuals tried to do so. One, my understanding, a Republican. Another one who once voted for Donald Trump. So they always use the term they. And it's one thing if an idiot on OAN will make a statement like this, or AON, or whatever the hell that network is called. But it's another thing when the vice president makes statements like that. Listen to J.D. Vance once again using that term, blaming the left for the murder of Charlie Kirk.
So I think my attitude is let these debates play out, but don't let the debates that we're having internally blind us to the fact that we are up against a radical leftist movement that murdered my friend a couple of months ago and that would throw many people in the Trump administration in prison, not for doing anything illegal, but for not following the far left's agenda. That is the real opponent here, a political movement in this country that has no animating principle, that has no agenda for the American people. Their sole obsession is to take down Donald Trump and anybody who helped Donald Trump govern. Focus on the enemy, have our debates, but focus on the enemy so that we can win victories that matter for the American people. That's my message.
So ridiculous. Everywhere I go, I hear people talk like that. And the vice president talks like that. And people in powerful positions talk like that. They tried to kill Charlie Kirk, and they did. They tried to kill Donald Trump. They. We hear this they all the time. And a broad brush of saying the left did it. Now, obviously, this language is reprehensible. Obviously, this language is irresponsible at a minimum. And it's evil. It's evil in nature. And the crazy part about it is every show I do, it could be Pierce Morgan, it could be Tim Pool, or any right-wing show that I do, they seem to know the motivation of Tyler Robinson as if they were a part of the FBI. Here's the bottom line. We don't know the motivation. It still remains unclear. It's still an ongoing investigation. Now, they believe they have their guy. There's a lot of strange entities involved here, so I certainly have a lot of questions, but we don't know the motivation. We have no idea. People on the right, you would think that they are working with Kash Patel. They seem to know the motivation. They think it was, because of his trans boyfriend or girlfriend. They think that's all this had to do with, and he was radicalized by the left. Clearly, he was radicalized by somebody, but we don't know who. We still don't know the who, what, when, where, and why. But yet these MAGA Republicans are so evil, and they're so disingenuous, and they're a bunch of liars, they think they know everything. Just like they claim they knew what happened in the New Orleans terrorist attack. Oh, it was an undocumented immigrant who crossed the border illegally. Joe Biden's fault. When it turned out this was somebody who grew up and was a naturalized citizen in America who committed those heinous acts. We heard the same stuff with the Paul Pelosi attack. Oh, this was some sort of gay relationship. They let him in. And the worst part about it is, when they're clearly wrong and they're proven wrong, they never retract and they never apologize. Here's another example of that. They have absolutely no idea. None. And even if Tyler Robinson, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, was a member of the radical left, say he was a part of that movement, which, by the way, I don't believe he was, is one demented individual responsible for an entire movement? You tell me. Is one person an entire movement? No, everybody else would have to be on board with that. And I can tell you right now, everybody on the left does not want political violence. The overwhelming majority do not want it. So for the Vice President of the United States to paint that broad of a brush is so irresponsible, it's so evil, and it's incitement of violence itself. That's exactly what it is. And you're going to get retaliatory violence because of the words that are used from a guy like a J.D. Vance or a Donald Trump or basically anybody else on the far right and media entities that use the term they. They killed Charlie Kirk. They. Well, let me tell you what they did. They stormed the Capitol on January 6th. They tried to overthrow a free and fair election. They, Donald Trump, lied and said the 2020 election was stolen. He still does. They continue to spread Russian propaganda. They continue to lie about the economy. They continue to make up lies about the left. They continue to use racial slurs among other things, when talking about Mamdani and others. They continue to attack migrants and brown people. Yeah, that's what they do. And I will paint that as a broad brush because I think the overwhelming majority of people who voted for Donald Trump think this way, because it never was Make America Great Again. It was Make America White Again, and it rings true today with what they are doing. Welcome a bunch of South Africans that are 100% white with open arms. Do they do that with any brown people that are seeking asylum from other countries? I think not. It's not Make America Great Again. It's Make America White Again. Donald Trump comes from a family of very white people, including his father, Freddie, who was arrested at a Klan rally. That is the cloth that Donald Trump comes from. White privilege. Mar-a-Lago white privilege. It's why he has one of the whitest administrations in the history of this country, and it's why his policies are helping his white, elitist, rich friends. Period. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, this is a guy that I've been wanting to debate for a very, very long time. He has a very large social media following. His YouTube page has over 500,000 subscribers. His name is Warren Smith. He has criticized me on his YouTube show. He has called me a liberal. He has said some other things. He criticized my appearance on Tim Pool's show. He has agreed to come on this show, and we are going to have an all-out, duke-it-out debate coming up next. So we're going to take a quick break, and of course, on the other side of the break, we'll also take your phone calls at 702-221-7283. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Warren in a duke-it-out debate right after this. You are listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Man, we've had some interesting guests, to say the least, this week. We had Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, on the show the other day. We had Don Lemon on the show yesterday, of course. Ryan Shedd joined me in studio earlier this week. That was certainly a lot of fun catching up with him. And I always enjoy debating and having conversations with people that I disagree with. And this is not an echo chamber. Anybody that knows me knows I would rather have a conversation with somebody that I disagree with than somebody that I agree with. It didn't go so well for Andrew Wilson when I did the Pierce Morgan show the other day, because Andrew just decided to leave right in the middle of the show. I'm still waiting for them to air that. We recorded that the other day. I'll let you know when it's up there. But anyway, as you guys know, I appeared on the Tim Pool show in Virginia last month. And some of the clips went viral, and a lot of people on the right were criticizing me for a lot of different reasons, which, by the way, I am totally okay with. I love a good debate and a good conversation. The guy joining us right now, I've been actually following stuff for a very, very long time on social media. He's got over 500,000 subscribers. And it is a pleasure to have Warren Smith right now joining us on the program.
Hey,
appreciate you being here, my friend. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Warren. First of all, just to give people a little bit of perspective on you before we get into some conversation here, how long have you been doing political commentary for?
Well, that video of me went viral. Started doing content once a week in the space with another teacher. We would just kind of have back and forth conversations. It was really interesting with him because he disagrees on many things with me. He has a different perspective. He might align with you on many things. So it's really cool to be in an environment like this. And maybe you and I can do this more frequently. It'd be great to have someone like that again.
Sure.
Yeah, ever since then.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's just ever since then. And then I lost my teaching job and now I'm doing it full time.
Cool. Yeah, you certainly have a lot of subscribers, that's for sure. All right, so I know there's a lot of probably more important topics we'll discuss than this one, but I do find this interesting because, as you know, I am very anti-Donald Trump. So a lot of people that don't have conversations with me assume that I'm a liberal. And I noticed that you did that on your page, which is fine. I'm not offended by that. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a liberal. But I am a registered independent. I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I'm just very anti-Donald Trump. Why is it, though, that not just you, but a lot of people, to be fair, assume that people like me are liberal or hardcore lefties because we hate Donald Trump?
Yeah, I apologize if I did that. Was it in the title or was it in the video? So, okay, yeah, that happens sometimes in the titles. I apologize for that.
I am not offended by that at all. You don't have to apologize.
No, I was listening to some of your stuff today and I heard that and I was like, oh, I should clarify that. So yeah, no, I get it. No worries.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Before we get to some important topics, let's just talk about my Tim Pool appearance real quickly, because I was talking to Tim Pool about this. So my point on the 34 felony counts, and, you know, I knew a lot more about it and I had a lot of conversations about it when the trial was happening. And my only point on his show was, the argument could be, okay, they're misdemeanors and it was politically motivated and they weren't felonies. Okay, fine. But that wasn't the point that I was trying to make. The only point that I was trying to make is he is a convicted 34 count felon. Now, we can get into the intricacies of why somebody like you or Tim Pool doesn't agree with it. Maybe the court got it wrong. Okay, I get that. That wasn't really my point. My only point was a jury did find him guilty. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Technically, that jury did find him guilty. It is a very strange case. The more you look into it, there's a lot to be questioned there. I think Tim kind of framed it in a strange way. I probably should have touched on that point because of what he did. He did reject that idea completely, but you're right that technically this jury did come to that conclusion.
Yeah, and that was really the only point. I guess he was trying to make Brian, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know, name me the underlying crime. Listen, obviously I know, and I mentioned that on Tim's show, the Stormy Daniels, the payment, were they misdemeanors? And maybe, could he win on appeal and all this other, certainly possible, right? But I think the broader picture that I was trying to make was his behavior, not necessarily the legalities of all these cases, but, listen, liable sexual abuser, 25 women have come forward accusing him of rape or sexual assault, including his ex-wife in court documents. And I guess this is the bigger debate we can have. Forget about the 34 count felonies for a moment. What about his behavior? What about just the other day, Warren, when he talks about some Democrats that could deserve the death penalty? I mean, this is unprecedented territory. What are your thoughts on that, Warren?
I think that was a mistake for him to say that, for sure. He's giving the other side ammunition. Yeah, I think that was a mistake. I mean, he makes a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things I disagree with him on, but I think there are many people that were faced with that binary decision of, is it okay, we have two flawed individuals, this guy or Kamala Harris, which one is the least bad option when I'm thinking about this rationally, given the things that I care about? So I know you're probably not one of them. There are many people, though, that declare you are now a Trump supporter, you are a conservative because of that singular decision. But I think it would be very easy for a rational individual to, when faced with that binary, to come to the conclusion that, well, I'd rather go with this. It does have its inherent risks, and this could go off the rails. So there are concerns here.
You don't think it already has, Warren? You don't think it's already gone off the rails? When you look at the economy, many people, with inflation going up over the course of the last 5 months, the employment numbers not great. I know they had this report that just came out, but we've had some pretty bad employment numbers, particularly in the private sector, when unemployment numbers continue to go up. The war in Ukraine is still going strong. There is no peace in the Middle East. When you look at all these people that have lost their jobs, when you look at, and I don't know how you feel about this, but these troops going into cities and going after civilians. I mean, and again, I'm for border security, but this is not the way many Americans wanted it, even Trump supporters, where you have people that are not even identifying themselves as ICE agents in front of Home Depots, outside of courtrooms, people being sent to El Salvador prisons, and then the Epstein files. I want to get to that with you too, but maybe we'll get to that in a moment. But don't you think, in a sense, it's kind of going off the rails already, or am I wrong in saying that?
I wouldn't say it's off the rails. There are things that are alarming. I definitely think, I mean, this is crazy. Like, if I was in charge, I would not be implementing the strategy in the way he is. I think you are giving the other side ammunition. It's causing people, like even someone in the middle, like Joe Rogan, to be like, I disagree with this. And there's things where I look at it and like, come on, man, just dial it back there. Do we need to do it in this way? But I wouldn't say it's gone off the rails. Yeah, you made a couple points there. What were the other ones you just said right there?
Well, there are quite a few that I didn't mention. I guess we could start with the big and beautiful bill, where we have over 20 million people that are going to be losing their Medicaid coverage. We have millions of people that are going to be losing their food stamps. And meanwhile, Donald Trump has given the biggest tax breaks for the top 1% in history, $100 billion this year. I mean, let's start there. Is that good? Is that good for the economy? I just think it's atrocious. And there's a lot of people out there, as you know, Warren, that are struggling right now. And the last thing, yeah, go ahead.
I have a lot of concerns around the economy as well with him. I think the mortgage debate is a bad idea. I agree with you on the Epstein handling. I think that was atrocious. But going back to that singular decision when faced with Kamala Harris versus that,
why? Tell me. Talk to me about that. What was it about Kamala that you said to yourself, I can't vote for her?
Well, there are many things. The things I'm concerned about in my own life.
Like what?
I think equity is a bad idea. Immigration. How much immigration reform would we be seeing right now with Kamala Harris?
I don't know. What
would have happened in the Middle East with Israel and Hamas? What would that look like now? There's no way to know. You're right. Like, we can't know.
Well, I'll tell you this, though. You can tell me if you disagree. Let's start with Israel. Kamala Harris was not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan. I don't believe we would have dropped bombs in Iran. And we certainly, I think you can make the argument, accomplished nothing by doing that. I don't think, I just feel like, I don't think so at all. No, I think that was intelligence that we got from the Israeli government, just like the intelligence we got from the Israeli government when we decided to go to war in Iraq. Remember, George W. Bush took partial the intelligence that we had. And listen, she was not a big Benjamin Netanyahu fan. By the way, neither am I. And, I don't believe we should coddle to the Israeli government. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Israel has the right to defend themselves, with Kamala Harris saying that over and over and over again. But I just don't feel like, I'm glad that he got 20 hostages out of there, but Joe Biden got 125 hostages out. So it's like, I don't know. I guess we can agree to disagree on Israel, but I can tell you, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, if Kamala Harris was elected, we wouldn't have had our own military going into these cities in this country. I don't think we'd have people not identifying themselves as ICE tackling grandmothers outside of courtrooms. We wouldn't have had these tariffs, and most people that are not partisan would tell you that economists that we're most likely headed towards a recession. We wouldn't have had the biggest tax breaks for the top 1%. I am not saying Kamala Harris is perfect. It was an anti-Donald Trump vote for me. But I think she's a decent human being. I don't think she's a bad person. I don't know if that matters to you. It certainly matters to me as a voter. I don't want a horrible, atrocious human being who goes into teenage girls' locker rooms being the leader of the free world. That's also important to me. I don't know if that's important to you.
I mean, I don't know who Kamala Harris is. She would not sit down for the same kind of interviews. I think that was a big factor. People couldn't get a read on it. It just seemed like there was just this puppetry going on behind the scenes, and it would just be a maintaining of the status quo. You're right. You wouldn't see law enforcement being carried out perhaps in excessive ways in some of these cities, but I don't think we would see any change in crime rates where people are concerned about that. So yeah, it's sometimes Trump often goes too far, but I have to say it's not just what you do, but how you do it. I disagree with him on how he does it often, but the goal he's trying to accomplish, I think, is very important to the people that voted for him.
I don't know exactly what that goal is other than to deport a bunch of brown people, to give the biggest tax breaks to his wealthy friends.
You do. Come on. You can figure that out.
I mean, no.
Goals are having absolute border security if possible. The concerns around the economy with the middle class, with illegal immigration. Do you think illegal immigration is broken? When he came into when Biden was president, do you think it was broken?
I think it's still broken. I think there's a lot. It depends
what. Okay, so what would the solution be that if it's broken?
Well, let me just start out by saying, in our lifetime, I don't know how old you are. You're probably somewhere around my age, but okay, so I'm a little bit older than you are, 45. But Republicans and Democrats have both not been able to solve this issue. I agree that there needs to be border security, but I do not agree that people that have been living in this country for decades, that pay taxes, that have families here, that are nonviolent criminals, should be treated like animals and be kidnapped.
I agree. That's really,
So while I agree with you that the Joe Biden administration didn't do a good job in handling this, neither is the Trump administration. We have both sides here, one extreme on one side, perhaps, and one extreme on the other side. But Barack Obama deported millions of people, but what he didn't have is Dr. Phil there with a microphone, and they weren't gleeful about it, and they weren't tackling people outside of courtrooms. So I think Donald Trump has failed the American people too when it comes to this issue. Now, there's a lot, I'm not saying you're like this, but there's a lot of Trump supporters out there that enjoy the fact that a bunch of brown people that have been living in this country for decades and nonviolent criminals are being treated that way. I personally, this isn't the country that I want to live in, where I see people being treated like that. So I think Donald Trump has failed on this. And if this is truly about making America safer, then why does he decide to pardon a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists, some of whom beat police officers? And my understanding is some of those people have committed crimes and are now back in jail. I mean, I just don't buy it that this is about making America safer. I just don't buy it.
Well, I agree. If someone assaulted a police officer, they shouldn't be pardoned. I think there were other concerns around January 6th, and we don't need to get too deep. I think that was a big debacle. Yeah,
does it happen Warren, if Donald Trump doesn't say the election was stolen, which it wasn't? Does January 6th happen if he doesn't lie about the election? I guess that's my question.
I think there are legitimate concerns that could be voiced around the election. I don't think that there were missing votes, but the process leading up to the collection of the ballots, you could say the coverage, there was definitely strain. Again, this goes right back to the beginning of our conversation. We were talking about the 34 counts, the felony trial. That is a very strange dynamic that maybe we could get into, because it's those kind of shenanigans that cause people just throw up their hands and say, well, this is unfair. And then you say, well, you're denying the election entirely.
Well, I'm an evidence-based person. Okay. Nobody has come forward with any evidence of widespread voter fraud, and the people that Republicans seem to turn to is the MyPillow idiot Mike Lindell and Dinesh D'Souza, 2,000 Mules, which has been completely discredited. When you say there are legitimate concerns, none of that has been proven, as far as I'm concerned, in a court of law that could have changed the outcome of a free and fair election. So when Donald Trump keeps saying the election was stolen, so he still says that to this very day, it is an attack on our democracy. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud, and you know as well as I that January 6th does not happen if Donald Trump does what every other president has done in American history and conceded, including Hillary Clinton. And I hear a lot of people on the right say, well, Hillary Clinton questioned the election. She conceded the next day. There wasn't a Democrat insurrection. And as far as the 34 count felonies goes, listen, you don't have to agree with every outcome, right? I happen to think O.J. Simpson is a double murderer. The courts and a jury found him not guilty. I disagree with that verdict, but I'm not going to say, I guess we have a system put in place, Warren. We can disagree with an outcome of a case, and we could say that it was politically motivated. Okay, fine. But the reality of the fact is it's not just a one-off. Let's just say he's completely innocent, which he's not. At a minimum, those were misdemeanors. Court found it felonies, and we can get into the weeds on that. But this is a guy that rips up our Constitution.
Why were they misdemeanors? What are you basing that on?
Falsifying business records is a crime. We know he did that. We also know that there was a $120,000 payment made, a week or two before the elections to try to cover up what took place there with Stormy Daniels.
That was done way, way ahead of time, and he was cleared 11 months prior to that.
So you don't think there was any criminal wrongdoing at all in this case?
What was the criminal wrongdoing?
I'm asking you because
I'm not claiming he did something criminal. So if he did something criminal, what did he do?
I'm not claiming it. A jury found him guilty. So
this is what happened on Tim Pool, though. But if I ask you, okay, but what did he do criminal?
Well, falsified business records, fraud, obviously is one characterization.
What did he falsify? Where was that? Where did that happen?
Inflating his business records. I mean, you could look that up. I mean, the 34 counts are pretty clear in what he did. Now, I think most people, even Tim Pool would agree that at worst case scenario, these were misdemeanors. And I guess what
did he inflate in regards to Stormy Daniels?
Okay, well, that's just one portion of
that's what he was. There was a singular action. He made a payment to Stormy Daniels. That's the only actual action that occurred. All the 34 counts are around that.
And my understanding, it was falsifying records and trying to and some people would use the term, it was campaign finance violations. And this was a week or two before the election where
the chairman of the FEC, a prior chairman, came out 11 months earlier when all this was being debated and said, this is not against the law. And he was even cleared 11 months later at the federal level. But then the DA of New York, who ran on a platform saying, I am going to get Trump. He said, we don't care. We're going to try it anyways. And that jury with him came to this conclusion, and people are questioning that. So when I'm asking for the evidence, and I can't figure it out, it doesn't.
Well, I'm not a juror. I didn't see the evidence that they saw. But let's just say you're 100, for argument's sake. Let's just say you're 100.
Shouldn't we be able to see that evidence if we're going to call the president a felon?
Well, I mean, you don't see all the evidence in every single case for a reason. Not every trial you get to see the evidence that the jury sees. That's just the way our country works. That's the way our justice system works. In a perfect world, I would say, yes, I agree with you. I think we should probably see all the evidence, but I think we should also probably see the Epstein files as well for the victims. I mean,
that's completely separate.
Well, it's separate, but yet it's not separate because Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He is weaponizing the DOJ, and this is a huge cover-up. This is the way Donald Trump has lived his entire life. And it's like,
but we're diverting away from something very specific right now.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a diversion. I was making the point that in every trial, all the evidence is not released to the general public or the media. That's just the way our courts work. There's nothing. I agree with you. I wish we could see all the evidence. Now, it's your opinion that there was no criminal wrongdoing. That's what I'm hearing from you, that you think this was completely
politically. The evidence that is available indicates. Now, if there's some secretive evidence, if we're going to call the president a 34 count felon, which sounds really good, it's like, wow, it's 34 count. That sounds really bad.
I think it sounds horrible. I think it sounds horrible.
Yeah, but in terms of political utility, it sounds great, which is a motivating factor in this. Then we should be able to point to some evidence. In the same way, if you're going to call J.K. Rowling a bigot or a transphobe, you need to be able to show me something.
Yeah. Well, I guess it goes back in circles to what I said earlier. A jury made their decision. I don't consider it a liberal talking point. You would consider it that. And I don't think you need to know the intricacies in every single case to just define what a jury decided. Now, you can disagree with the outcome. You could say it was politically motivated. You could say it was a liberal judge and a liberal jury and all this stuff. And okay, fine. In our system, he has a right to appeal. He's the president of the United States. That case went away. But I think it's grounds to his behavior and the way this man has lived his life. And I just want to understand from you. Well, again, we'll get to the Epstein files in a little bit, but I just want to hear, like, what was it about Kamala that you hated so much? I mean, you had described, Warren, she didn't do enough interviews. That's not Kamala's fault. That's her campaign. Her campaign made a lot of mistakes.
Her campaign?
No, that's why you have a campaign manager.
That's a good reason not to vote for her. If she's not even in control of her own campaign, she can't even make those decisions for herself. You're going to point to her, well, it's her staff.
Well,
I don't know about
you have people in her campaign that make decisions. She also only had 3 months. And I blame Joe Biden for that, by the way. I've been very clear on that. Joe Biden should have taken a seat, and he made a very big mistake. She only had 3 months to campaign. I'm not saying she was a perfect candidate, but listen, there's a lot of, Donald Trump did a lot of podcast interviews, and he was out there a lot more. There's no doubt about that. Her campaign made a lot of mistakes.
Do you think she should have gone on Joe Rogan?
Sure. And by the way, I was the one who was begging her to go on Howard Stern. She finally did that. Sure.
Why did she lie about the Joe Rogan situation? Why did she make those claims? And then Joe came out, was like, no, we didn't deny. I didn't take that day off. I actually invited her to come down. They said he bailed on it. It was just,
I don't know.
strange.
I don't know what the truth is there. That could be true. I don't know. I think she should have done more interviews, but that's not why I would vote for somebody like Donald Trump. I mean, that's not, I want to know, like, what was it about her besides maybe not doing the Joe Rogan show, which, by the way, I think she should have done. What was it about her that made you decide to vote for this guy instead? I'm just trying to figure out your line of thinking.
I do not think we would see any significant action on border security, on the flow of fentanyl, human trafficking, DEI in education, which is something I've encountered face to face many times. It seems to be status quo to many people.
So you have a problem. You have a problem with people not being hired, not for their credentials, but for other purposes, like maybe skin color, right? You have an issue with that, correct?
Logically, equity does not work. So if you understand equity. Like if we had 100, let's say we have 100 applicants to be firefighters in my local town, right? Okay. And 50, let's make it simple. 50% are black, 50% are white. They go through the process. Only 8 end up being firefighters are black. The rest of them are all white. Oh, that indicates a problem. How are you going to change that outcome, which is what equity asks for? There's only 2 logical ways. You can either change the standards or allow people through the process that would not otherwise have qualified through that process. You can apply this to any process. Can you think of any other way to achieve a better outcome other than those 2 things?
Well, I would start by saying that there are very few African Americans that are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Until recently, there are very few African Americans that were in certain positions prior, not because of their resumes. But I will say this, I just want consistency on this issue, right? I don't think race should be the end all be all for getting a position. I would agree with you there. But I would also say, wouldn't you call some of the people in Donald Trump's administration, for lack of a better term, DEI hires, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has little to no experience, somebody like
jumping away from equity? I thought we were talking about the very fabric of equity.
Part of DEI, and I think you're making the case of equity, but a lot of people, and I think you're one of those people that would say, I don't want somebody getting a job that doesn't have the experience that somebody else has, but they get the job because of the color of their skin.
That's one potential consequence.
Okay, so
you've sat down with Don Lemon. Don Lemon sat down with Elon Musk and claimed there's no evidence that equity could put anyone in danger by lowering standards at all. The logic is the evidence. I just laid out this logic for you. It is there is no other way within the laws of logic to achieve this outcome, which is what equity asks for.
I believe that if you have 2 people that have equal resumes and experience, one person is black, one person is white, I don't have a problem with choosing that person that is black to give them opportunity.
Wow.
Well, I don't know why you would say
that's
wow.
Flawed. Okay, I'll tell you, because first of all, that's never going to happen. There are no 2 individuals in this world that are identical. Right? People make this argument as though that is possible. You're never going to have 2 identical applicants. You will always be able to choose someone who is better. There will always be one who is more qualified. You understand that? Even identical twins, they will never share all their past experiences, their history.
That's fine.
Potential.
I understand.
Why do you care about race so much?
Why do I care about race so much? Well, I care about people that are discriminated against, whether they be black people or transgender people or gay people. I feel like there's a lot of people in this country that are judged based on race, skin color.
Aren't
That's
you
why
judging them by their skin color when you say, I'll choose you
No, I
because
want-
of your skin color?
I want people to be treated as equals, no doubt, but you would agree with me that there is
You just
systemic-
said you would choose the person because of their skin color.
Well,
That's not
here's
treating them
why.
as equals.
Here's why. Would you agree that there's systemic racism in this country?
No.
You don't.
Can you provide
Okay,
evidence of
sure.
systemic racism?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So Ahmaud Arbery
Other
was
than
lynched-
equity. Equity would be a systemic
Sure.
racism.
So Ahmaud Arbery was lynched by 3 white men. For months, there was not even an arrest that was made. The mother was lied to by law enforcement and local politicians in that city. My question to you, if Ahmaud Arbery was white and 3 black men did the exact same thing, do you think there would have been arrests that day, or you think they would have handled it the exact
There's
same way?
no way for me to be able to answer that question. You could have a corrupt police department in a town
Not
with a
racist,
community
though.
that is corrupt.
Nothing to do with race.
Racism will always exist at the individual level. When you're talking about systemic, you're talking about laws. Can you point to a single racist law?
I'm giving you
Not an
circumstances.
anecdote. You're giving me an anecdote of insane people.
If George Floyd was white, would the same thing have happened
There's
to him?
no way for us to be able to know that.
No way for you to know. Even though the officer was a proven racist who had used the N-word in Derek Chauvin in the past, you think the exact same thing would have happened if they weren't recording? If they weren't recording that, it would have been a police report that said George Floyd was the aggressor, and you don't think it had anything to do with
How
race?
do you know that? How can
How do
you cannot
you're-
logically know that?
Here's how I know that, because Derek Chauvin and those police officers filed a fake police report, and the only reason why Derek Chauvin is in jail right now is because there were good Samaritans that recorded it. That's why we know that.
How do you know that that couldn't have happened if his skin color was different?
I'm asking you the question. You're making the case that if George Floyd was white, you believe the same
I'm not
thing.
making that case. I'm making the case that you're making a claim that is not logically provable.
It's not logically.
You said if his skin color was different,
Mhm.
a series of actions, the following actions would have been completely different. There's no way to logically know
All right.
that.
Well, logically, let me go back to Ahmaud Arbery real quickly, because I think you're a smart guy. And in my personal opinion, with respect, I think you're being disingenuous in this argument. You're
Okay,
telling me
how?
that I'm going to explain. Ahmaud Arbery, an innocent black man jogging down the street, 3 white people literally lynch him. Law enforcement had the video. They saw the video because, as you know, one of those white men recorded it. All of law enforcement there were like 20 or 30 cops on the scene. They all saw the video. Not one arrest was made. They lied to Ahmaud Arbery's mother. And you, hold on, here's the question. And you mean to tell me that if Ahmaud Arbery was an innocent white man in that city, jogging down the street, and 3 black men murdered him, not one arrest would have been made that day? Give me a break.
Logically, there's no way to. I get your point, though. Look, I'm not familiar with that example. It sounds to me like you had racist individuals doing something abhorrent, and that would have to be a deeply corrupt department. The vast you're in the same way you're going to have corrupt individual police or pockets of police. That does not equate a systemic level of corruption.
Let me ask you another question then, because I guess.
But I'm not. How am I being disingenuous in this analysis?
Because I think anybody that, in this instance, maybe that is logical, would tell you that if Ahmaud Arbery was white and 3 black men did that to him, that it would have gone down a very different way.
That's not logic. That's thinking in generalities, though.
No, I
That's the
think
opposite of logic.
I think it's understanding logically that there was racism in that system, in that police department with the police officers and politicians, and they all lied. And I believe Ahmaud Arbery's skin color was a main factor.
It could have been a big factor, but people also, when they do something atrocious, they want to cover it up. They could have done something too atrocious to someone who was white and covered it up in the exact same way.
If you could give me an example of a white person that was killed by 3 black people and they covered it up.
There are many. I can't give you a one-to-one example of that scenario, but there are many white people who are killed at the hands of police every year. What would that be evidence of? I'm not making a claim that it's evidence of anything larger.
Okay, well, can you give me an example of a time where you were pulled over by police officers because of the color of your skin?
What? No, I cannot. Now, what would that be evidence
Well,
of?
I don't think this is funny, actually, because I've actually driven with people who happen to be black that were pulled over for no reason at all, and it's pretty obvious to me. And even Tim Scott and others that are actually serve in DC, have told me, and many others, that they're pulled over 8 to 10 times a year. They believe because of the color of their skin. I absolutely believe. Listen, I'm pro law enforcement.
Good example. Can we talk about this? Because
yeah,
maybe they drive differently than I do. I have been pulled over one time my life.
That's my point.
But
that's my point. You're making my point.
Evidence.
So you think black people as a whole,
an absence of evidence is evidence of something larger?
You think as a whole, black people drive differently than white people?
You can't say, Warren, you've never been pulled over before. Therefore, that's evidence that you haven't been pulled over because you're white.
Warren, I've never been followed in an electronics store because of the color of my skin, because they think I'm going to steal either. Do you understand the larger point that I'm trying to make here? Sometimes black people
if you dress different, if you dressed with your in a stereotypical way, a white person could dress in a way that would set that store owner off in alarm and be like, I got to follow this guy. He could be a security risk.
So you think people are following people for? You think people are following other people?
I think a black man who is a well-dressed black man, likely in most environments, is not going to be followed around. Again, there will always be individual racism, though. There are racist individuals.
So you think the major factor of why black people are followed in stores because in fear of they might steal stuff is not their skin color, but because they might be wearing baggy pants?
There's no way for me to know that. That happens at the individual level. Every store owner has a different reason. They're in a different environment. Different factors are contributing to that decision that they're making.
So is Tim Scott lying when he says that he was pulled over 10 times last year because of the color of his skin?
I don't know who Tim Scott is.
Okay, well, he's a representative in Washington, D.C., and he ran for president. I'm just saying I don't know what it's like to be black. Obviously, you don't know what it's like to be black in this country either. But I think, in my opinion, I guess this is where we disagree, Warren. Yes, I do think systemic racism exists. I do think that
evidence. Can you point to a single law?
Well, sure. You don't have to point to a law.
Yes, you do. If you're going to claim systemic racism, that's what systemic racism means.
But I've given you examples of why I think black people are not.
You've given me examples of individual racism.
Well, yeah.
That's not systemic racism.
So you believe that black people are treated the same as white people in our justice system as well?
They should be, yes. Our justice system is designed to treat people equally. That's why I'm alarmed when Trump is not treated equally.
Okay, so hold on. Warren, my question wasn't if you think they should be treated the same. I agree with you. They should. My question is...
There's no way for me to know. You would have to provide me an example of where it's not being applied fairly for me to say it's unfair.
Well, first of all, money is a big factor here. I think we both can agree that if you have legal representation and money,
I agree with that.
Okay, well, in this country, unfortunately, minorities, not as a whole, but many minorities in this country are suffering in poverty. And when they're arrested for certain crimes, they are not treated the same as somebody who has privilege, who has money that can get legal representation and can afford it. So isn't that a systemic issue to begin with? Yeah. Maybe you don't want to apply color.
I work with kids who come from nothing. All right. I've seen them from the worst circumstances. The vast majority in that school were white. So there are a lot of poor people that are of all different skin colors. You're absolutely right that your socioeconomic status is going to influence the kind of lawyer you can get. And I think that is very problematic. I agree with you. It's very strange that if you have enough money, you can navigate the system better. Sure. I agree with you there, but that's not racism.
So I guess where we fundamentally disagree is that you believe as a whole, black people are treated the same as white people in society for the most part when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to our justice system. And I think there's a lot of black people that would disagree with you on that. And listen, I'm not black, but, you know, I talk about these issues all the time and you're entitled to your opinion, but I completely disagree with you. I don't think as a whole, and let me be very clear on this, I am pro law enforcement. I think the overwhelming majority of police officers are very good people. They're heroes and they do great work. There's no question about that. But I literally have been in the car with black people driving the vehicle who were pulled over for absolutely no reason. That's never happened to me before, by the way. I've had some speeding tickets.
The time I got pulled over was for absolutely no reason. I get your, but that's, okay, you were in the car with someone who was black that was driving and they got pulled over for a nonsensical reason.
Mm-hmm. And that happened to you once, right? But a couple of my friends, this happens to them literally a dozen times a year. And I think
what city do they live in? Where I live, no one gets pulled over.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's your take on where you live, then I'll take your word
Are
for
you
it.
familiar with Roland Fryer by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Who's that?
The Harvard professor who did a deep dive into this very claim. It's I don't want to digress into it. It's really interesting stuff that if you ever want to chat about it, it's
Okay, sure. I mean, I guess I will agree to disagree on that. I just do not believe that in society right now, as it is, black people are treated the same as white people. I would also say that, for the 50 South Africans that Donald Trump brought in with open arms that were seeking asylum. By the way, I have no problem with that, with what they, I have no problem with what he did there, but is he doing that with any brown people in this country? Has he done that?
You're making these claims and then you're just moving on so fast. You're very good at this. I'm not a fast talker. I usually do these things slower. So I'm kind of like, oh, that's interesting. And now you're talking about what Africans are you talking about?
In South Africa, Donald Trump and his administration allowed those to come into this country that were seeking asylum. They were welcome.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think it's atrocious. It's very scary what's going on in Africa.
I agree. But the point that I'm trying to make is these are people that are 100% white. And I can't think of one example of him doing that to anybody that was brown. As you know, in other parts of the world that are seeking asylum, they're in fear of their lives. And I haven't seen Donald Trump welcome any brown immigrants with open arms. I mean, I just see a lot of attacks on these people, many of whom are nonviolent criminals. And I don't think that's by accident. I really don't.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what he is thinking. I'm not a mind reader. Other examples of this anyway. Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not a mind reader either, but he once said he didn't want black people counting his money in his Atlantic City casinos. He wanted Jews counting his money. I'm not in his mind either, but I think it's
like a joke to me, but
well, I, whether it's a joke or not, it's completely despicable. Can we agree on that at least?
I think you can make jokes that's why the realm of comedy exists, to be for people, so people can say things that they otherwise would not be able to say, and that's kind of what makes it funny. We could segue into Nick Fuentes or something or on that topic.
So you think someone to be the leader of the free world making racist jokes, you think that's appropriate?
What was the joke again?
He said he didn't want black people counting his money in his casinos. He wanted Jews counting his money.
Where did he say that?
It's in Playboy magazine, an interview in Playboy magazine.
What year did he say
that? He was not in public life when he made that statement.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's not a tasteful thing to say. It's
okay. Fair enough. I think Nick Fuentes is a despicable human being. I think he says things to get clicks and make money. He's a Holocaust denier. I think he's a despicable person. And I got into it with Myron Gaines a few weeks ago in DC. Here's another man who makes a living off of using slurs and homophobic slurs. And I think these people are not serious people. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think Nick Fuentes is a horrible person.
I just wanted to pick your brain on it, man, because honestly, I was hoping to get some advice because I sat down with him in June for like an hour and a half or something, and I was thinking of putting it on YouTube, but I tried because I went into that because here's how it happened is I saw him sit down with Candace and I made a video about it, and he had said a statement that I was like, that's got across the line of anti-Semitism regarding Dave Smith. So I made this short little video and I got blasted for it. Yeah. And then someone said, yeah, he'll talk to you. I said, sure, let's do it. And I started kind of looking into who he was more.
Right.
And I had the things that I was concerned about, and I did my best to challenge him on those things.
Sure.
And he gave me logical responses that I'm not, so I'm torn. Part of me is concerned, but part of me.
Let me defend you. Warren, let me defend you on this. I don't have a problem with you interviewing him, and I don't like it when people do this to me as well. I've had, Enrique Tarrio on this show a few times. I think he's an awful person, but I had him on. And I think it's important to expose people, right? And to interview people. So I don't have a problem with you interviewing him at all. I want to be very clear on that. Do I think he's an awful human being? Yes. Sometimes he gets it right with certain things. Even when it comes to the Trump administration, he's been very critical of the Trump administration, especially with Trump's support of Israel and the Israeli government, I should say, not necessarily Israel. But I do believe he says certain things to get clicks and to make money. And I just don't think he's a good guy when you're somewhat of a Holocaust denier, which I think Nick Fuentes is. It's hard to take anybody like that seriously. Listen, I'm very anti-Israeli government, but I'm certainly pro-Israel, pro-Israeli people. I don't want innocent people to die in Palestine or Israel. And I think he just goes way over the line. And I do find that interesting that Donald Trump invited Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, who only praises Adolf Hitler, and invites them both to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Like, I guess
This
going
was
back,
pre any Adolf Hitler, though, and also he had no idea what he was getting into in
it
that
wasn't
conversation.
it wasn't when it was pro Adolf Hitler. That was the time where the week Kanye West was praising Adolf Hitler, if memory serves me right. And I just think that it's so beyond the pale, the people that Donald Trump, first of all, associates himself with.
Oh, you
But
might be right about that. I was thinking about the rap song.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I want to move on to Jeffrey Epstein because I do think this is an important topic.
Go for it.
Can you give me, because this is the guy you voted for, and I wanted to ask you, can you give me one logical explanation as to why the Trump administration has sent Maxwell, one of the biggest sex traffickers on the planet, to a Club Med facility with a puppy getting preferential treatment? Why would they send her there, and why would they be treating her this way?
I can't give you a logical explanation. The whole thing is ridiculous. I think it's a big mistake, and I probably align more with your views on this.
Okay, I appreciate that, but wouldn't a logical explanation be probably because Trump is hiding something and that's why they're protecting her? Wouldn't that be a logical explanation?
Yes, I'm not familiar with he sent her to an island somewhere.
No, I'm surprised you don't know this. So Ghislaine Maxwell was sent to a minimum security facility.
Okay, got you.
Which is, by the way, unprecedented with the 20-year sentence that she received, and she was found guilty. She is allowed a laptop. Guests arrive. They give them snacks. She's allowed a puppy. She has security taking her to work out whenever she wants to. She gets yoga classes, tennis. This is unprecedented to treat. And by the way, Donald Trump's former attorney, Blanche, is the one that spoke with her in an interview when she cleared Donald Trump's name. And then all of a sudden, she gets all this preferential treatment. And I say to myself, there's only one, by your statement, logical explanation for this, is that Donald Trump is hiding something. He's all over the Epstein files. And this is what so many of these MAGA people voted for him for, to release the Epstein files.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
He's the one who's hiding it. I mean, this is beyond a huge cover-up.
Yeah,
and
Elon Musk's, and this ties into your core question about why you would vote that way. A lot of people voted because they thought there was a lot of potential in Elon Musk. He's a remarkable individual. I was excited about having him in that position. I think when he dropped that text making the claim that Trump's all over the Epstein files, which is what you just said as well, he's not a stupid man. He did retract it. So yeah, that was a moment where I was like, and honestly, I think Trump right now is on the shakiest ground politically he has ever been in.
I agree. Yeah. I agree, because I just did this in the first segment, Warren, where his numbers the past 10 days have been abysmal for him. But you still don't have any reservations as to voting for this man, even though he's probably over 1,000 times in the Epstein files. When you look at the way he's deploying,
how do you know that? I'm just curious. I'm not saying you're wrong, but how do you know that?
If you Google the reports that have come out and the leak reports that have come out from some pretty good sources, they said Hakeem Jeffries is in the file once, which he admitted to, and they say Trump is in there over 1,000 times. And Kash Patel was asked, by the way, under oath, if you remember, Eric Swalwell asked him, "Did you tell Pam Bondi that Trump is all over the Epstein files?" He was asked 7 times and he wouldn't answer the question. Everything points, and oh yeah, by the way, Trump tells Republicans to vote yes on this. And then it's an overwhelming vote. I think only one person voted against it. And then all of a sudden, hours later, Pam Bondi holds a press conference and says, "Hey, we're opening up a new investigation into this." I mean, come on. You have to admit, this is a monster cover-up.
Yeah. Your question, do I regret the vote?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I would do it the same every time, 10 out of 10 times. I don't regret that at all. I think that was the rational, and your viewers can disagree with this, but I think that was the rational decision. I would stand by that.
What was the worst thing about Kamala Harris? Because I know you had mentioned, and I'll let you go here in a few minutes here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Because you had mentioned you didn't like the fact that Kamala didn't do Joe Rogan. Hey, I agree with you on that. I think she should have. But what was it about this woman and her policies? I know you had mentioned you don't think she would have been strong on immigration. Okay, I also don't like, and we agree, you don't necessarily like the way Trump is going about this either. What was it about this woman that you would rather vote for a guy who is an adjudicated liable sexual abuser? We all know, and again, I'm not trying to go over talking points here. I'm not even going to bring up the 34 felony counts, but I mean, come on, you know this is, you would agree with me that Trump, he's a bad guy. This is not a good human being. Can we start there, or are you not willing to go that?
No, ethically, yeah, I don't think I would get along with him in a one-on-one environment, honestly. I don't trust anyone who likes gold leafing that much, that gold paint. It goes.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah.
But I can't point out the one thing that's worst about Kamala Harris, but I just, like we just said about, it was more of the potential of the other side. It wasn't that I really I don't think Kamala Harris is that real of an individual. So it's not
And
like
you
I
think
loathe her. You voted for her because you despised the other person. I think many people voted for Trump because they were genuinely excited for the potential of what could come, whether or not that actually happens. Elon Musk, what he could accomplish. And I do think what he uncovered has been remarkable. So I think it was worth a spin. Yeah.
What has he uncovered with Elon Musk? I mean, he said we were getting $5,000 Doge checks, and there was a small fraction from what he said they allegedly were saving the country. It didn't work out very well with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I would also say, you mentioned the term real individual. Who do you think is a more real individual? Kamala Harris or the draft dodger, Donald Trump? Who's more real? No, I mean, I think it's
a more real individual is someone who at least can sit down and have a 2-hour, 3-hour conversation, as opposed to someone who cannot, I don't think would be capable of doing it.
So what do you consider a conversation? Somebody who talks about windmills and says the economy is great and everything's hunky-dory, and I've
about whatever she wants. If she,
as long as
someone that's without a huge team like Joe Rogan, who, yeah, it's him and Jamie sitting there, and the whole point is that it's meant to be a real conversation. We're not on a set at CNN. We don't have your team in the room. I don't think in that environment with whoever you want, but in that environment, I don't think she would do it.
But you think a real conversation is lying every other sentence, lying about the election, lying about the economy, lying about Joe Biden, lying about Democrats, virtually lying about everything? I respectfully disagree with you. I don't think that's a real conversation. I'd rather have somebody sit down for 30 minutes and tell the truth than somebody sit down with anybody for 5 hours and lie and talk about gibberish. Every single time something goes wrong, Donald Trump blames Joe Biden. Every single time. I mean, a jobs report.
Kamala Harris can sit down and tell the truth for 30 minutes. Why can't she sit down and why is it always in? And I don't know. I just disagree with that. I think I think it turned a lot of people off. The word salad, the way she answers in this roundabout, it's just like, okay, this is just political language. And yes, Trump has this completely different style. That's, as you've pointed out with these quotes, it's just like, whoa, not used to that. And yeah, there's going to be times where I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't say that. But it's the opposite of this thing that just doesn't. I don't know what you are.
I'm not going to sit here and say Kamala Harris was the perfect candidate. Joe Biden wasn't the perfect candidate. But I would rather have somebody that might struggle in a 2 or 3 hour interview, like you said, than somebody that is going to call reporters Miss Piggy. That somebody is going to go on the attack, and every single time you bring up the Epstein files, he won't answer the question, and he'll lie and say he had nothing to do with Epstein, or he'll lie and say the economy is great and everything is headed in the right direction. I guess I would rather have somebody that tells the truth but might not be as eloquent at doing so than somebody like Donald Trump in every puffer interview, because last I checked, Donald Trump's not doing lefty interviews for 2 hours, unless you could name me one. Donald Trump is.
I've seen him do interviews with CNN. And I mean,
when was the last time Donald Trump did a 2 hour interview?
I don't have it on.
He hasn't. Donald Trump hasn't sat down for 2 hours ever with CNN. He did do a 1.5 hour town hall before he ran for president with Caitlin Collins, but.
We're just battling preferences at this point, man. It's just you've got your preferences. I find one thing, it resonates with me more. I find one thing probably like flawed, but somewhat more authentic, somewhat more potential. It just seems to.
Would you say Trump is authentic? Because it sounded like you were going to say that. Is he
somewhat more authentic in the ability to at least sit down and try it over and over and over again? Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
I mean, I guess this is where we disagree. You can do a million interviews, but if you lie and you don't tell the truth and you blame everybody else but yourself and never take responsibility for everything, I think that's the opposite of being authentic.
Now we got to have examples of like the lies with
Donald Trump. I won the 2020 election in a landslide. The Democrats cheated. It was rigged.
All right. He genuinely seems to, I don't want to get into the election denial thing. I did 6 hours with Destiny talking about I genuinely think he believes that he is in, and he probably has seen things that we, as you said, we don't get all the evidence.
Then why didn't they present it? Then why didn't they present it in a courtroom when they had 61 opportunities to do so? And the judges said there was no merit to the case, which meaning there was no evidence.
Well, according to you, we don't get to see all the evidence. That's what
why did
you
the judge,
said when I asked you about where's the evidence that he's a felon. You said we don't get to see the evidence.
But the judges did, and some of those were Republican appointed judges, and they all ruled there was no merit. So are they all lying?
They're also. I'm not claiming that it was. I think that he has been fighting this thing. He has had things come at him, and that the felony charges are a great example of that. I think he is just genuinely feels like he is a victim in a larger game in his mind, even if it's not true. I think he genuinely believes there were big shenanigans, as I call it, and he feels genuinely it is deeply unfair. I'm guessing.
So Warren, it can't just be that he has a huge ego and he can't admit to terms to himself that he actually lost. So because he feels like he was mistreated or he's a victim, he could lie.
I'm guessing. It's probably going to be a number of factors.
Yeah. Why is it that when he wins, everything seems to be fine? Like when he wins an election, everything went great and everything's cool.
Because he won, it went great.
Right. But when he loses, it was rigged. Don't you find that a little bit suspect?
Yeah, because if you're in a flawed, corrupt game, let's just imagine you are, right? And it goes your way, well, you won. You keep going. If it doesn't go your way, you're going to call out the flawed, corrupt game.
Mm-hmm. So if Democrats were smart enough, and everyone says Joe Biden was in the bunker, but if I guess Joe Biden's a genius because he was able to steal the election. If Democrats are so smart and they're able to rig an election, why didn't they do that first go around? Why did Donald Trump get elected and win in 2000?
I don't think they did rig it in. What do you mean by rig? This is like the conversation that I'm.
Well, Donald Trump says that
the election part.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump says it's rigged. And then we can move on. But would you be willing to admit?
Well, okay. What about like Elon Musk's his findings? His last appearance on Joe Rogan, he delves into this in depth. The idea of the incentive structure that is there, which you could say, no, that's the Democrats are not motivated. They're not actually doing this, but the evidence is there that you could do it. It is logically everything is in place.
Here's my opinion. Joe Rogan is obviously an extremely intelligent man who has a lot of money. But just
evidence though?
I'm sorry, not Joe Rogan, Elon Musk. Just because Elon Musk makes a claim doesn't mean it's true. Elon Musk also said we were all going to be getting $5,000 Doge checks. How did that work out? How did his relationship with Donald Trump work out? So I mean, Donald
don't have very many individuals that have that level of access. So I am inclined to believe, especially someone who has accomplished the feats he has accomplished, that somehow that individual does get access to this information.
What access does
access that was granted with the Doge team?
Okay, but that's government wasteful spending. Okay, that's one thing. But we're talking about the election. What access?
Did you listen to the interview?
No, I didn't, because I really don't care what Elon Musk does. But you do.
You should. Maybe. How are you going to gain more insight if you just dismiss?
Because what experience and what knowledge and what access to elections does Elon Musk have that you or I do not have?
So he has pointed out where he has observed incentive structures through looking at what they found with Doge that incentivizes payments, and it goes to the idea, which many would call a conspiracy, that there's an incentive to allow healthcare for people who are here illegally, or to not get rid of the people who are here illegally because they will vote for you, and it can amass a political outcome. You are able to achieve a specific political outcome that's in your advantage.
On that,
if you're logically, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I do that from time to time. I think that's my ADD, to be honest with you. I apologize. But you had said something that's interesting. Last I checked, if you're an undocumented immigrant, you cannot vote in a presidential election. So I'm confused when you say that. What do you mean?
Right. But for the House of Representatives, which is determined by the census, it does not matter if you're here as a tourist. If you're, it doesn't matter if you're here legally or not, and that determines the House of Representatives.
Understood, but no, I get that. But we're talking about the presidential election because Donald Trump said it was rigged, and you're saying that Elon Musk.
I wasn't saying there's a direct correlation between these two things. I was pointing out some observations he made, and you said I would just ignore it completely because I don't like Elon. I was thinking there might be some value here.
It's not because I don't like Elon. It's that he doesn't have any extra information or evidence that an election was rigged. Because if he did, it would have been presented in a courtroom. And that's the only point I'm trying to make.
Okay, so I'm not talking about the election being rigged in that specific point. I'm saying he might have some interesting, important observations here, even if it doesn't correlate to the election being rigged. You might want to look into it.
All I could tell you, without the shadow of a doubt, is that nobody has been able to present any hardcore evidence at all that there was widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of the election. And the guy who you voted for is the only president in American history that has yet to concede an election. January 6th does not happen if Donald Trump doesn't lie and say the election is stolen. That should have been the end all, I thought, for a lot of people. Now we can go to some of the things that he has said in the past. For example, I don't respect John McCain because he was captured, attacking Gold Star families. We can go on and on about all the things he said, and it's mesmerizing to me that is not as, and again, you're entitled to your opinion with respect, but it's mesmerizing to me that sort of stuff is not as important to you than Kamala Harris not doing the Joe Rogan show. And that's what I've heard.
You're reducing everything I've said down to that one point. Like that was just an example I was throwing out to try and help.
I understand. You don't think she's capable of doing a 2 or 3 hour interview. Well, I'll say this.
Making an observation on her authenticity. That's not why I didn't vote for her.
And I would say that, and this is where we disagree, there is no comparison in authenticity between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, who wakes up in the morning and puts on 8 layers of orange makeup, lies every single day, literally about everything. And yes, Kamala Harris.
Literally everything. Be careful with that.
Okay, well, almost everything. Right now, he's lying about the economy. Right now, he's lying about peace in the Middle East. Right now, he's lying about Ukraine, and he has in the past. He said that Zelensky's a dictator and they started the war. He literally is lying about everything, even when it comes down to Thanksgiving food at Walmart. He's talking about the Walmart, I guess the package you would call it, for lack of a better term. Even yesterday and for a week, he's been saying, oh, well, it's cheaper now. The Thanksgiving meal at Walmart is cheaper now than it was a year ago. Well, yeah, that's because last year it was 23 items and now it's 15. The guy literally lies about everything. He lies about the war in the Ukraine. He lies about his weight. He's like George Santos. I mean, listen, occasionally I'm sure he will tell the truth, but go ahead.
The tariffs long term, definitely there are questions there. There's a lot of people that made the same decision when faced with that binary and voted for him. But they're like, honestly, my business has been affected by this. And I think it might be a widespread implementation might not be a good strategy. But I try and keep in mind that I'm just a citizen here. I don't have the full picture. This is probably a lot more complicated than I know. Like the bomb in Iran, I would have to see that classified information to actually say whether or not I think it was right or wrong, and we don't have that information.
Our own CIA said that it put back their what they were doing maybe 2 to 3 months. They also had a couple days of warning. There's videos of them getting trucks out of that facility, multiple trucks out of that facility. I wonder what was in those trucks. So I mean, that's the intelligence of our own. So I would certainly ask you that. Last question.
You think that there was no, like they didn't hit nuclear potential?
According to our own CIA reports, the initial report said that it put back their facilities maybe several months. To me, that is not a victory. And this is something that we've heard from Israel for decades about Iran's nuclear capabilities. But Barack Obama didn't bomb Iran. And again, I'm not saying Barack Obama was perfect, but he used his words instead of bombs. And I think that is important.
Didn't Barack Obama start this entire plan? This has been in the works for 15 years.
Obama did not bomb Iran. Donald Trump
he started the plan to bomb it. It took 15 years to develop.
You could say he started the plan if you would like, but the fact of the matter is that he didn't bomb Iran. But I want to ask you a little bit about right wing. I mean, because you had talked a lot about left wing talking points. Do you think transgenders are just horrible for society? Do you think banning books is? Well, I don't want to ask you multiple questions. Let's talk.
No, it's
No,
for it, man.
you're right. You're right. Sometimes I do that, and sometimes I get a little bit all over the place, and I shouldn't do that. But let's talk about transgenders. Why is it that it seems like MAGA Republicans are obsessed with transgenders? I just don't understand.
I think there are many people that are concerned with the idea that I tomorrow can decide that I'm a woman, and now legally I'm a woman. Like now I have access to those under the law, to those spaces. I think that's a shocking idea. Like that's a systemic idea. That's a clear thing we can point at systemically that is of concern, because that's really where the rubber meets the road in this conversation, is at the level of law. It's not about my feelings of how you identify. It's where the rubber meets the road under the law. What are the ramifications of this?
What specific law would you be referring to in regards to that?
Tomorrow, if I can decide I'm a woman and now I'm treated like a woman under the law, there could be some consequences to that.
What are the consequences of the differences of calling somebody a he or a she? Because quite frankly, I really don't care. I'll call you a he or a she, and it doesn't affect me one way or another.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about under the law. If tomorrow I'm a woman under the law, it doesn't matter what you call me. I have legal access to that space. You can't call the police because I'm in there, because I have the legal access to it. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but what specific law are you referring to that somebody gets a sex change and the law affects them in a different way? What specific law are you referring to? Just help me understand what you're saying.
Now you're jumping to sex changes.
Well, transgender, it could be a sex change, or it could be somebody identifying as a woman or a man. All the above. Let's put that all the above.
Yeah, that would be. You could even put that in a separate. We could have a separate conversation about that. I think the concern is around where there is no stand. Like you could have a conversation of, okay, if you are passing, then you can have, because if Blair White walks into a women's dressing room, I don't think anyone's going to honestly have a problem with it. They're not even going to know that that's a biological male. The problem is that tomorrow I, with a beard or whatnot, could just make that same decision. And then if we were to say, okay, well, we're going to go the Blair White route. Okay, that means we need to have some standard. Okay, when do you pass? Where is that line?
Oh,
we're told, you can't have it. You can't impose an idea of what passing is. It's all subjective. Do you see how this could be a problem?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So my opinion goes both ways, right? For lack of a better term. If you've had the transgender surgery, I have no problem what restroom you use. If you're somebody that just walks into a restroom with a beard and says, hey, I'm a woman, I do think that's inappropriate, and there should be some certain standards. Now, that's very difficult to police, but here's my issue with this. I hear Republicans all the time talking about indoctrinating our kids, the 300,000 teachers in this country. I haven't heard a story of a child that has died, or a child that went home and say, hey, mommy, hey, daddy, I want to be gay now, or I'm going to turn gay when I'm 12 or 13. And Republicans seem to be, this is the word I used, obsessed over this. And what I don't hear Republicans talking about when it comes to protecting children, which they claim they do, is doing something about people who go into schools and obliterate kids with weapons. They don't seem to care as much about that, but they want to talk about the transgender issue and how our children are being indoctrinated. Listen, I agree with you. I think it's very strange, and it shouldn't be allowed when somebody who is clearly a man with a beard, who might say they're a woman who hasn't had the surgery and has male genitalia, should not have access to a female bathroom or locker room. I'm with you on that. I also have been very consistent on transgenders in female sports. I don't think it should be allowed either. I'm with you on that. But why is it so many people on the right talk more about children and getting indoctrinated by their teachers, and yet when it comes to 20 kids getting blown away in a school, they just say,
it's very difficult to determine that frequency. Things are always, it depends what's happening recently, what's in the news, things are evolving. So it's difficult to police people's concerns to say, well, you're talking about this and you're not talking about this enough, because you have no idea what I care about. So to take a blanket statement like that and say, You all are talking about this too much. Therefore, you don't care about children being shot in schools.
I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Nancy Mace has tweeted over 1,000 times this year about transgenders using restrooms.
That's Nancy Mace.
There are, okay, can you give me an example of one MAGA Republican that has been consistent about doing something about all the gun violence in this country? Anything? Have they proposed a bill?
Me.
Okay, but you're a lawmaker. I appreciate you doing that, but can you name me a lawmaker that is on the right that don't have their AR-15 pins or brag about their A+ rating from the NRA, that they actually want to work with Democrats and say, hey, we need to do something about all the gun violence in this country?
Yeah, but maybe they disagree with the Democrats' approach. Maybe the Democrats disagree so strongly with them.
Barack Obama, after the Sandy Hook shooting, tried to do anything and everything he could to pass anything into law.
So what do you think we should do for gun violence?
I'm glad you asked, and then I'll ask you the same question. I can name about 5 or 6 different things, and I'm glad you asked that question, by the way, because I think there's too many people out there that don't ask that question.
Okay.
I think first of all, the age should be 18 to 21. I'm very uncomfortable with an 18-year-old walking into a gun store, buying thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Yep.
At number 2, I think there should be a mandatory 2-hour class. Now, I understand if you drive a car, it's a privilege. It's not a right. I get that. But when you get into a vehicle, we want people to drive safely, right? That's why you have an instructor. They check your health. They check your eyesight. Give me a 2-hour class on the basics: how to hold a gun, how to store a gun, how to shoot a gun. That's it. I think you should have to re-register your gun, just like you have to re-register a car. I also am a firm believer in red flag laws. Now, they're very inconsistent. I'm not saying if you don't like your neighbor, you should be allowed to call the police and say, hey, he threatened me, and then they take that person's guns away. No, that's not fair. It should be a case-by-case basis. In some states, a husband could leave his wife a message, God forbid, saying, I'm going to kill you tonight. That husband would probably be arrested for a threat, but then the next day, in some states, not all, that person would have the right to buy a gun until he sees his day in court. You know, I think red flag laws need to be stronger. And then there is the weapons of war, as I would call them. And without getting into the weeds on which weapons are weapons of war or not, I know that there's an assault weapons ban put forth in the early 80s that was fizzled out by Republicans. Gun violence went way down. You could look at the statistics in the early 80s. Now, I'm not saying, Warren, give me all those things. All I'm simply saying is, give me 1 or 2 of those things. It won't end all the gun violence in this country.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
What is an assault weapon?
Again, going into the weeds of what an assault weapon is, here's the way I would define it. Many of these guns that are used, like the guns that were used in Las Vegas, the guns that were used in Columbine, the guns that were used in the Buffalo shooting, the gun that was used in the Texas El Paso shooting, there are certain weapons that are built for one reason and one reason only: not to defend yourself, to shoot as many bullets as possible in a short period of time to kill as many people. Now, again, we can get into the weeds on what exactly those weapons are, but back when our forefathers were putting the Constitution together,
that's really important, that distinction.
So if you don't think there should be an assault weapons ban, let's just assume that that's your take. Give me some solutions that you, and let's forget about the assault weapons ban for a moment.
First, we'd have to figure out what an assault weapon is.
I understand your point. Let's just say, okay, let's forget about the assault weapons ban for a moment, that we disagree on that. What are some things that you think we should do? Because I named you like 5 or 6 things that you think would make this country safer when it comes to guns.
Sure, but it's still difficult. I'll do my best to answer that, given that we don't know what an assault weapon is, though. But so we'll just say guns in general then. So because we can't define what an assault weapon is, I don't think banning assault weapons is a reasonable one. We'll take that off the table. I agree with you about the class. So in Massachusetts, I recently just went through this whole process. You have to, for me to get a hunting rifle, any kind of rifle, I have to get an LTC, license to carry, which takes 6 months on average in Massachusetts. That's to even get a hunting rifle. You have to go to a class. You have to go to the police department, fill out the application. You have to get 3 references. Depending on the town, this can change. They might require a letter. And my question is, what do you mean by the reference? Who's a good reference for me to be able to get a gun? And what if you don't like my references? Can you revoke my ability to? I thought this was a constitutional right. There's some very strange things being done in this area, though. The problem with this model is that when you say to even get a hunting rifle, you have to go through this. It's the most frustrating thing I have ever done bureaucratically, like any process.
Okay, Warren, I hear your frustrations. But what I want to know is, what solutions do you have that you think might work?
Okay. there are parts of this that should be implemented across states, because I've done the same thing in North Carolina where you go in, you can buy a gun that day. I disagree with that. So I'm trying to lay this out for a reason. You would take, I like the classroom portion. I agree with you on that. So we get rid of the 6-month bureaucratic nightmare though. And we get rid of saying to get a hunting rifle, you have to go through this nightmare, because what does that do? Now, every single person who does complete this process now has the legal ability to carry a concealed firearm. What if you just want to hunt? What does that do? You're going to have more people able who you might not want to have that go through that process now carrying concealed if they want to, rather than distinction it out. So North Carolina, because every state does this, it's so infuriating. North Carolina, I can go and buy the gun, but yes, I agree with you. You should have to take the class. It takes a day. So I would be fine with it if it took a week, a month, maybe, but going beyond that, I've experienced it. I've experienced the nightmare of it, and it's very frustrating.
You're not going to like what I'm about to say, because you might call it whataboutism.
Go for it.
But you are very frustrated that it takes you 6 months to get a firearm. Okay. How about the people that are trying to get legalized, citizenship in this country that have to wait like 15 years?
Oh, it's probably infuriating.
Okay. I'm glad we agree on that. Go ahead.
Bureaucracy is a nightmare. It's awful. It's one of the reasons I want limited government and not more of it.
Which party is trying to make it more difficult for people to be natural?
Traditionally, conservatives tend to believe in less government, and Democrats tend to believe in more government.
Democrats have been always trying to make it easier for people to get their citizenship in this country. You know that. Republicans are making it more difficult for people to become naturalized citizens.
I get your point.
Okay,
I
go
get
ahead.
your point there. But so back on the as far as police, so being in a school, having gone through the school shooting training and what they do with that, I think we should have, and we had an armed officer in the school most of the time. I think we should have one in every school. That seems to be like the most immediate response we can provide, given that we cannot define what an assault weapon is.
Warren, I don't disagree with you on that, but it certainly didn't help in Uvalde when you had about 25 people with guns and they were cowards. But I don't have a problem with what you're saying about having armed.
That's a great example, though, man. Because, you're gonna, in the same way you use that example of the corrupt police department being evidence of systemic racism, you're going to have incompetent departments, but that's not. Most people would not respond.
I think there's a difference when you have about 20 officers with guns that are acting as cowards while children are getting killed, than someone who behaves or acts a certain way just for the basis on someone's skin, which is what I'm appealing to. I don't think
differences.
I think are there a group of people in this country, a small percentage of police officers that are cowards? Absolutely. There's also a group of people in this country that treat others differently because of the color of their skin. If you want to call systemic,
the most important thing from this little conversation right here is it's been the assault weapon portion of it. Honestly, you really got to figure that out, and it's got to be.
I have my opinion.
What is it?
I have my opinions of it, but what I didn't hear, I guess this is what's frustrating. Okay. What I didn't hear is any real solutions that you have. You said you complained about it took you 6 months to hunt. I didn't hear in your explanation any real things that you think would help, other than making sure that every school has an armed security guard. What about all the mass shootings when it comes to concerts? When it comes to
my response was very similar. It's not the same to yours, but in the same way you tried to answer it, I did. You were talking about the waiting period of the training that's required. I laid out my formula for it, given what I've experienced with it. And then the best solution specifically for school shootings is an armed guard. But the most important part of this entire conversation is that you all are calling for an assault weapons ban, and you can't tell me what an assault weapon is.
No, I think there are certain guns, there are certain AR-15 assault weapons, and there are certain other types of weapons that can shoot at a higher volume than certain other weapons. For example, like your everyday normal pistol that some police officers use.
Okay, hang on a second. How? You understand how this works, right? So if my pistol fires the exact same as my AR-15.
There are certain weapons, as you know, higher capacity magazine weapons that shoot at a higher rapid force than other certain weapons that are used.
What does that mean, rapid force?
Okay, well, there are certain weapons that are designed to shoot more bullets at a faster rate than certain other weapons out there.
No. Can we just clarify? This is really important. We need to clarify this. I think you're talking about automatic weapons, which are not legal. They're already banned. You're thinking of like it goes. So guns, so let me get it on camera, semi-auto, which is what we're talking about, all these, they're going to fire as fast as I can do this. That's the limitation on all of these firearms we're talking about. Do you understand that?
I do understand that.
It's not like this gun can allow me to do this faster.
I do understand. There are certain
that's your distinction. You're saying that's what's going to determine this. And I'm saying that doesn't exist.
Okay, well, I would say go back to the early 1980s when there was an assault weapons ban put in place, and you could take a look at the certain types of weapons that were illegal. The violence when it comes to guns in this country went drastically down, and then after Republicans allowed it to fizzle out, gun violence in this country went up. Now, there's some other things that I think we should do.
What were those weapons?
Again, I don't have the list of all weapons that were banned right in front of me, but what I will tell you is, and I guess we can end on this, but I guess this is, for me, this is the frustrating part, right? You sound like you don't want innocent people to be harmed. Neither do I, right? We agree on that. I don't hear any real solid solutions. I agree with you. We should have an armed security guard in every school. No doubt. I agree with you.
Just as much a solution as you've given me.
You said armed security guards in schools.
You didn't say that. How have you given more of a solution than me?
Well, first of all, I said 18 to 21.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot that one. I agree with that. I think you should be 21 at least.
I also believe you agree with me that we should have
red flag laws. That's sorry.
Right.
I was feeling like I was talking too much on that. The red flag, I think if you do the work to get help and you address the problem, you should not lose your ability to have a gun. I think that's because it disincentivizes people in that way. And then it causes people to be even more unlikely to bring attention to where it needs to be brought because they feel like they're going to lose that ability for life.
If somebody threatened, God forbid, a member of your family and said, I'm going to kill you, and they went to jail for the night and then got out the next day, would you be comfortable with that person buying a firearm?
I frequently do this. It's very difficult because you draw a false correlation to characterize what I'm saying as
I'm just asking you a question. No, I'm not. It's got nothing to do with something you had said. It's a very specific question.
You were asking a different question. I got
you. No, that's okay. When it comes to, and then we're running kind of late here. I've kept you a while. I apologize for that. When it goes to red flag laws in a specific circumstance, and I'm trying to make it personal to get your thoughts on this. If somebody, God forbid, threatened the life of a member of your family, they went to jail for the night for a death threat, would you be comfortable with that person the next day being legally allowed to buy a firearm? Or would your excuse be, well, I think you just need to get help. Let's let this person get help.
No, under my model, you wouldn't be able to buy it the next day. And
okay, so we agree. Then we agree. I'm just saying that
lots we agree on.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, I would love to do this again more, and I do appreciate anybody.
Thank you for having. It was fun. It's fun. You're a cool guy. Thanks for taking the time, man. If you ever want to do it, is this live on YouTube?
It's live everywhere, my man. It's live everywhere. I'll shoot you an email with the interview afterwards, my friend. And I appreciate you coming on, Warren, and give out your YouTube channel before I let you go.
Oh, Warren Smith, Secret Scholar Society. Yeah.
Warren, I appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Have a good one.
You too. I apologize to everybody. This is a Friday where I did not have enough time to take calls because now the beautiful and lovely Nicole Mitchell is joining us from one very serious interview to a very fun interview. Not to say that interview wasn't fun. Nicole, it is always great to see you. How's it going? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It is so good to see you. I'm glad I can bring the lightness and the joy after a very intense conversation.
I can't say what I wanted to say, but there is somebody in the studio that is very enjoying this interview, maybe just as much as I am. I'll leave it at that, Nicole. But we haven't had you on in a little bit. How was your week?
It has been a whirlwind of a week. Work has been crazy in a great way. I've been so busy with work in such an amazing way. I'm surviving California rain. We're babies here, so when it's not sunny and perfect, we kind of all freak out. And then I'm getting ready to go to Sweden on Monday. So I'm spending these next couple of days packing up.
Well, I should have said that to my last guest. I don't think there's a lot of gun violence in Sweden. Geez, I wonder why. But yeah, I should. Wow, what makes you get out there to Sweden? That's awesome.
I know. My partner's going for work, and I'm just tagging along. We did it last year, and I had so much fun going to their Christmas markets and touring some of their museums. So I'm excited to go back now that I'm familiar-ish with Stockholm. But it will be freezing. So wish me luck.
Yeah, it's cold out there, but there are a lot of very beautiful people out there, by the way, I must say. There's a lot of natural blondes out there, too, by the way. Very, very nice people in Sweden. That sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. Man, you're traveling all over the place, aren't you?
I know. I've been going nonstop. And actually, I just had some people ask me yesterday when I'm coming to Vegas. So we need to make another Vegas trip happen,
that would be
Brian, so I can hang out with you.
There are people in the chat that are saying they want you to wear the same outfit when you co-host with me in Las Vegas. So I don't know if that's possible. I think Numchuck might have said that too. I don't know. But
I will happily wear the sexy style that I can get away with Brian's studio.
With a Pam Bondi wig, so you can play Pam Bondi for a day or two. That'd be pretty cool also.
Yes, I love that. I'm so down.
I hate to ruin the mood here.
It's okay.
But you did play Pam Bondi once, and a lot of people thought it was actually Pam Bondi in studio because that's a testament to you did such a great job. What would you say to people like others that are hiding the fact of not releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files and the fact that Donald Trump could be allegedly a pedophile? What would you say to people out there like the Pam Bondis of the world that are actually hiding this stuff because they don't want it out there to protect the president?
I think I would say more to the people who are hiding it because we know why they're hiding it. I think to the people who support Trump and don't want it to come out, like, I just want to be like, guys, like, at some point we have to face the music and we need to know the truth. And like, this doesn't, like, it's just learning what actually happened. And like, that's what's important to know if someone is suitable for office or for leadership or for any position of authority. Like, I would hope that if the Democrat president was on a list, like, we should all know this is the person we're voting into office to have say over how our country is run. We need to know the integrity or a lack of integrity or criminal record to know if they're fit for the office. Like, it's not something we should hide from. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. It's triggering, but we need to face and we need to know the truth.
I think that's very well said. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. We all need for the victims. I completely agree with you. You know, I won't say which show I was on, although people probably know, but I was on a very far right-wing show. And I mentioned you because many of these people that were on this show were very anti what you do for a living. Yeah. And I had mentioned that you came from a very alt-right family and you were a former pastor. And now you're doing what you love to do and you're making a lot of money and you're living your best life. And they couldn't understand that. And they said, oh, her parents were trying to save her. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what would you say to those people who are so judgmental and they like, well, your parents and your family were trying to do the right thing. And you're the one, you know, that's doing the bad stuff now. What would you say to them?
Why is it bad? Why is me being an adult doing consensual things with other adults bad? Like, where did you pick up that story that a core wiring of your body, which is for pleasure? When did you ever pick up the story that is bad? When did you pick up the story that you're only allowed to experience pleasure in a specific way with a specific person at a specific time? Like, why are you so attached to rules and legislation that you've actually lost touch with your own source of freedom and pleasure? I actually think the work that I do is some of the most healing, holy, and liberating work, but only if you're willing to like break outside of the rules and the black and white mindset that's been given to you.
That's very well said. I agree. And by the way, I feel the same way. I want people to live their best life and do whatever the hell they want to do, so long as it's not illegal. And I was called pro porn. I'm obsessed with porn, which, by the way, I'm not. And not that there's anything wrong with that. And I was told by certain people like Myron Gaines that it's because I'm Jewish. And I'm like, what the hell does my religion have to do with anything? Have I been to strip clubs before? Yeah. Nobody's being forced to do anything in there. The women are showing off their bodies. And it's not, listen, I've been in Vegas for maybe 23 years. Maybe I've been to a strip club maybe 20 times. Like, I don't know. But like, what does religion have to do with it? And why? It seems to me, and we've talked about this before, the people on the far right that are so anti-porn and they're anti-gay are usually people that are probably gay and usually people that watch 20 times more pornography than the average person.
Yeah, because I think when you repress it, it comes out in really sideways ways. People like you and me who don't repress it and have a healthy relationship with our own sense of pleasure and sexuality, we're not addicted to it. We're not controlled by it. Like, we are in control of our bodies and desires. But those who are so afraid of it and like dread it and have been taught that it's so bad, it's usually those are the ones who are consumed by it. So the very things they accuse you of or they accuse me of are just merely projections of their own reality. So this is what I always think. For those of you who hate what I do, for those of you who think Brian's pro porn or whatever, like, you're just revealing who you really are. So you think you're accusing us and you're really just laying your cards on the table saying, I'm addicted to porn. I'm closeted, you know?
Exactly. They're releasing their own insecurities out on us. since we have about a minute left here, let's have a little fun here. Not in that way, Nicole. That's not what I meant. But can from a woman's perspective, everyone's going to vomit in their mouth right now. Can you imagine the hell that Stormy Daniels had to go through with Donald Trump being on top of her for 13 seconds? Can you even put that into words?
I have to laugh because of the horror. I mean, but thank God it was 13 seconds. We'll celebrate that it was 30 seconds and not 3 hours.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been worse. And I think
stuck with someone doing that. That's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Hope that it's as short as possible.
3 hours. I'm pretty confident Donald Trump would have had heart failure. That's very, very possible. Nicole, always looking beautiful as you are. I cannot wait until you come back to Vegas. I seriously cannot wait. So thank you so much for coming on, as always, looking great. And for the record, everybody in the chat says you look a heck of a lot better than the last guest. All due respect to Warren.
Thank you. I love everyone in the chat. Thank you for having me, Brian. You're such a delight. Have a wonderful weekend.
Same to you, Nicole. Have a great weekend. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. That's a great way to end the show. Having Nicole on a Friday, the last segment of the show, makes me happy. This is one of the first shows in a very, very long time that I didn't take any phone calls, and I apologize for that. That's on me, okay? But I promise you, my promise is good. I'm not Donald Trump, okay? We will dedicate the show on Monday, be taking a ton of phone calls. I'll try to do an hour and a half of calls on Monday, okay? Scout's honor. All right. I hope everybody has a great weekend out there. I'm going to be going to the F1 races over the weekend. I'm going to the UNLV football game tonight with some friends. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be celebrating my mom's birthday. I'm going to like a barbecue. I got a very busy weekend. None of that involves pornography. I know that'll get a lot of my friends on the right very upset. But anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks to Numchuck. And we will see you on Monday, same time, same place. Have a good one, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silver Rock.